Rain whipped the windows of Ashcombe Manor as Inspector Alistair Finch stepped out of the black cab. The driver, already regretting the detour from the village, muttered a curse under his breath as Finch hoisted his bag and shut the door. Before him, the manor loomed, Victorian, vine-choked, and stubbornly indifferent to modern times. The door creaked open before he could knock. A tall, gaunt man stood in the threshold, silver hair pulled into a loose knot. "Inspector Finch," he said, voice like parchment. "You're early." "Mr. Quill," Finch said, brushing off the rain. "Or should I say, the Quill? Your name's been in my files more than a few times." Thomas Quill smirked, stepping aside. "Never convicted, and hardly famous these days." The entry hall was dim, all dark oak and oil portraits. The fire crackled in the drawing room beyond, where a stack of yellowed papers sat beside a half-empty bottle of scotch. Finch's eyes lingered on the manuscript. "That it?" he asked. Quill nodded. "Ashcombe. My last novel. Never published." Finch approached the pages, flipping the first one open. His expression tightened. The gardener's throat slit in the greenhouse, the housekeeper drowned in the pond, the stable boy hanged in the barn. Finch's eyes lifted to Quill. 2 dead already, a 3rd missing. "Coincidence?" Quill offered. But even he didn't sound convinced. Finch turned back to the manuscript, heart sinking. "You wrote it a year ago, before anyone died, before you invited them all here." Quill said nothing. Outside, thunder rolled over the hills like a warning. The morning brought no sunshine, just a pale mist that clung to the hills and wrapped the manor in quiet unease. Inspector Finch stood in the greenhouse, hands in his coat pockets, staring at the dried pool of blood near the potting table. Crimson still stained the edge of a rusted trowel. "Gardiner was found here 2 days ago?" he asked. "Yes," replied Eleanor Bryce, the housekeeper. Her eyes were red, voice flat. "Mr. Quill said the police wouldn't come until you." Finch studied her. Middle-aged, wiry, with a no-nonsense demeanor that cracked only when she looked toward the blood. "And you stayed?" "I've worked here 20 years, Inspector. I stay through storms." He turned toward the table where soil was scattered beside broken pots. No signs of forced entry, no fingerprints on the handle. Cleaned, deliberately. Was anyone else in the house the night it happened? "All of us. The writer's guests. They arrived last week. Said it was a retreat for creative minds." Her voice twisted slightly. "Now it's a tomb." Finch knelt, examining a torn scrap of paper caught in the greenhouse door. He tugged it free, ink smudged, words trembling. He came to prune the roses, but the thorns bit deeper than he ever could. His blood ran cold. The same line appeared on page 7 of Quill's manuscript. He tucked it into his notebook. Eleanor swallowed. "Do you think it's him, Mr. Quill?" Finch rose slowly. "I think someone's treating this house like a stage, and the script's already written." A raven cawed from the rooftop above. The dining room at Ashcombe Manor was unnervingly civil, despite the undercurrent of fear. Silverware clinked softly. 5 guests remained, seated around the long oak table, lit by the flicker of candlelight. Finch observed each one. There was Lydia Maris, a best-selling crime novelist with sharp cheekbones and sharper opinions. Beside her, Julian Webb, a playwright known for scandalous scripts and scandalous behavior. Across from them sat Margaret Day, a quiet poet with eyes that rarely met another's. Next to her, twin brothers Simon and Peter Lang, art critics whose sentences often began with "actually." Thomas Quill, seated at the head, raised a glass. "To those who remain," he said. A macabre toast. Finch didn't raise his. "Tell me," the inspector said, cutting through the silence. "Were any of you aware that Mr. Quill's manuscript details your deaths?" "One by one." Margaret dropped her fork. Julian chuckled nervously. "You're joking." "I'm not." Lydia leaned forward. "And how, pray, does it say I die?" Finch's lips tightened. "A poisoned glass of wine." She paused, looked at her untouched drink, then calmly pushed it away. Peter snorted. "This is ridiculous. Are we characters in some deranged play?" "Maybe," said Finch, "or maybe someone wants us to think that." He looked to Quill, who merely smiled. "The line between fiction and fate is thinner than you think, Inspector." The room fell quiet again. Somewhere in the house, a grandfather clock struck 8, one chime for each soul still breathing. The next morning, Margaret Day was gone. Her room, tucked in the east wing, looked undisturbed. Bed made, window cracked open. No signs of a struggle, no blood, no note. Just a slim book of poems left on the nightstand, the corner of one page carefully folded. Finch turned down the corner. A single verse was underlined in pencil. "If silence falls like snow at night, perhaps I've vanished with the light." Thomas Quill stood in the doorway. She was always fond of metaphors. Finch shot him a glare. "This isn't poetry. It's a pattern, and it's accelerating." "She was fragile," Quill replied, voice low. "Sensitive to shadows, but clever. She could have left, or someone helped her leave." Finch searched the room meticulously. Behind the curtain, something caught his eye, a black feather. Too large for a crow. A raven's, same as the one he'd seen watching the manor yesterday from the rooftop. He turned to Quill. "Was there a raven in the manuscript?" Quill nodded slowly. "Page 32. It perches by the window before the poet disappears." Finch's jaw clenched. Back in the drawing room, he laid out the manuscript, flipping to the predicted page. The words chilled him. "And when the poet vanished, none mourned loud enough to wake her." The room darkened slightly as the sun slipped behind heavy clouds. Finch murmured to himself, 3 gone, 4 left. Behind him, a floorboard creaked. Finch spun toward the sound, only to find Lydia Maris standing in the hallway, arms crossed, eyes like knives. "You don't trust any of us, do you?" she asked. "Should I?" She smirked. "We're writers, Inspector. We lie for a living." He approached slowly. "Tell me something truthful, then. Why are you really here?" Lydia glanced down the hall before answering. "Quill invited me months ago, said it was a literary gathering. I came because I owed him. We used to, well, let's just say we share a complicated past." Finch studied her face. "Did you know about the manuscript?" "Not until you mentioned it. But I saw him scribbling late into the night. He always looked pleased with himself, smug, like he knew how it ended." Finch paused. "What if someone else read it? Someone trying to act it out? Or trying to rewrite it?" Lydia offered. "Control the narrative." A knock echoed from the front door. Both froze. "Expecting someone?" she asked. "No," Finch said. He moved quickly down the hallway and pulled the heavy door open. A man in a soaked trench coat stood on the steps, breathing heavily. In his hand was a small leather-bound book. "I'm Edward Hale," he said, eyes darting past Finch into the manor. "I need to speak to Thomas Quill. It's about the manuscript." Finch stepped aside warily. "You'd better come in." As the door closed behind him, the wind howled. Edward Hale clutched the manuscript notebook like it might vanish. The others gathered in the drawing room. Lydia, Julian, the twins, casting suspicious glances his way. Quill remained standing near the fire, unreadable. "I was Thomas's editor," Hale began, removing his coat. "For 10 years. He sent me Ashcombe last winter. Said it was too dark to publish. Too personal." Finch leaned forward. "You read it?" "Every word." Hale opened the notebook, revealing marked-up pages covered in red ink. "And then I destroyed my copy. Or so I thought." Quill shrugged. I only sent it to you. If others have it, that's not my doing. Hale's voice hardened. There were annotations, notes about each character, real names, details only Thomas could know. It wasn't fiction, Inspector, it was a plan. A silence fell. Peter Lang finally spoke. So you're saying he intended this? Wrote it to, what, manifest murder? Quill raised an eyebrow. Are you accusing me of sorcery? No, Finch said coldly. But perhaps something worse. He took the notebook, scanning the red notes. Names, times, scribbles. One entry caught his eye, Margaret's name circled in red, followed by one word, unfinished. And this, Finch asked. Hale hesitated. Margaret's fate wasn't clear. Thomas said he was waiting for inspiration. Quill chuckled darkly. And inspiration always comes. Suddenly, a sharp cry echoed from the hall. Julian bolted upright. That was from upstairs. Finch stood instantly, hand to his coat. Stay here, he ordered, rushing toward the stairwell. As he ascended, the air grew colder. Somewhere above, a door slammed shut. Finch climbed the creaking stairs 2 at a time. The wail had come from the west wing, unused, according to the housekeeper. Dust coated the banister, paint peeled from the walls. At the end of the corridor, a door stood ajar, swaying gently on rusted hinges. He pushed it open. Inside, Julian Webb lay sprawled on the floor, unconscious but breathing. A broken wine glass lay beside him, its contents soaked into the rug. On the bed sat Margaret Day, alive, pale, trembling, but alive. You're supposed to be dead, Finch whispered. Margaret looked up, eyes wide. I ran. I faked it. I didn't want to play the game anymore. Finch approached slowly. You wrote the manuscript, didn't you? She nodded. It was never Thomas's. She reached into a drawer and pulled out a second manuscript, handwritten, pages frayed. He stole it. My idea. My words. He said it was brilliant, that no one would believe it came from me. But someone started killing for real. She closed her eyes. I think he wanted it to come true, to make the manuscript real, but not like this, not out of his control. Julian groaned. Finch crouched to check his pulse, steady. He must have been the next page. I changed it, Margaret said. I rewrote the ending. I didn't want anyone else to die. Footsteps thundered down the hall. Quill burst through the door, wild-eyed. It's mine, he hissed. She doesn't get to rewrite me. Finch drew his pistol. It ends here, Quill. The writer froze. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then, slowly, Quill smiled. But what if the ending was never ours to write? A single raven cried outside the window. The ink had dried. The story was done.